Okay, let's record. Let's record. Hey y'all, how y'all doing? Welcome to Earth Goddess TV. Welcome to Earth Goddess TV. How are y'all doing today? How are y'all doing? And now, before I get started, I want y'all to say, excuse my voice because I am up 2, 3 in the morning doing this video. I could not sleep, so I still have to be mindful of my surroundings. So bear with me if you could barely hear me through this video. I will try to talk a little bit louder and clearer so that you can understand me and hear me a little bit better. But this is just one of those nights I could not sleep, and I felt like, you know what, my mind is thinking, let me go ahead and put out a video. So tonight, fam, I wanted to talk about retrogrades and basically how we should handle them, and basically a little bit of what they mean in astrology. So if you're new, welcome to Earth Goddess TV. On this channel, we talk about basic astrology and spirituality. If you're new here, you can catch up on my previous videos that I've done about astrology. If you're already part of the gang, you know what time it is. Let's go ahead and get into this astrological knowledge. So what I wanted to talk about basically was retrogrades, basically in astrology and what they represent. So a lot of the time, when we hear about retrogrades, we normally hear about like negative things attached, associated with the retrogrades. And a lot of the times, depending on your chart, you can have 2 to 3 planets that are retrograde, or even more that are retrograde within your chart. But whatever the case may be, retrogrades do not have the best history or per se the best rap because of, the attitude that people take when the retrogrades appear. So our first question we ask is, what are retrogrades? So basically, retrogrades and what it represents in astrology is basically when the planets appear to be going backward in a backward motion, but in reality they're just really slowed down. They're not really going backward. They just appear to be going that way because of the emotion is just going so slow where it looks like it's almost not moving or moving the opposite way. So like I mentioned before, most people fear or dislike, retrogrades because of the frustrations that they can bring, rightfully so, especially depending on the planet that you may have retrograded, especially if you haven't yet to find a way to deal with planets in your chart that say give you a little hard time, especially when retrogrades or certain things happen in the sky. So the best thing I can say, especially if you have a negative attitude towards retrogrades, it's best to actually prepare yourself for them versus making them your enemy, because retrogrades are just not going to stop coming, whether you hate them or not, so you might as well embrace them. So I too used to have this attitude about retrogrades and basically how they affect me, because I have quite a few retrogrades in my birth chart, so I would definitely feel some of these when they came along. So this is specifically why I had to change my attitude towards retrogrades and just basically take a more mature approach to how can I work with these retrogrades within my chart versus having them be a main frustration in my life when certain things appear. So I want to jump into next, how would you work with your retrogrades? First, you have to look at your astrological chart or your birth chart and look at all the planets, how they're aspected, and along those planets you should see the sign that your planets are in, and there, if it's in retrograde, there'll be a little symbol of an R red above that planet, and that'll let you know that that particular planet in that particular area of life, aka that house, is in retrograde. So you will look at also the aspects to these planets as well, because this is also a telltale sign of how this retrograde will affect you depending on what's aspected to whatever house this is currently taking place in. So I will go ahead and do like the Venus retrograde, because that's one of the retrogrades that's that really people don't really talk about as much. Now, when you're talking about the planet of Venus, you're talking about the ruler of Libra and Taurus. This is also the planet of our pleasures, our our luxury, our taste, things that feel good to us, things that are comfort. So Venus retrograde can manifest itself, especially in frustrations of maybe like your love life, um, your financial life, it could feel stagnant or even cold depending on what else is aspected here. Also, planet Venus deals with, I meant to say also, is love and romance as well. So, aside from your money, your taste, your luxury, things that feel good, your love language as well. So, if Venus is retrograding in your chart, um, instead of most of the time when I see planets in retrograde, this to me is like a telltale sign to kind of like go back to the drawing board, sit, introspect, reconsider, reflect, and basically come up with a new plan to either change this retrograde so it can work out better for you, or to be able to basically just ride and embrace the ride or whatever that may be coming towards you. So I hope I didn't sound tongue tied with that. So basically, with your Venus in retrograde, this is not a time to start any new relationships, get into any like new relationships of any kind. I'm gonna just be honest with you on that front. So I wouldn't use this time to start a new romantic relationship, any business partnerships, any friendships. And actually, doing Venus retrograde, this is actually a time where you may actually have a lot of ex partners coming back into your life, whether that's romantic, friendships, a lot of ex friends coming back in your life, ex colleagues, ex co workers. This will be the time where a lot of past lovers or past situations kind of like resurface, because this is the planet for it, especially when it's in retrograde. So if you also have Venus in retrograde, this will also be a time, depending on how important these relationships are to you, you can use this time to say hash out or put out on the table any differences or anything below the surface that may be lingering between you and, say, a romantic partner, say a friendship group, uh, work colleagues, or anything like that. Because if you don't, this will manifest as an inner tensions, frustrations, and this will ultimately block you from living your best life, especially if you already have this planet in retrograde. So you want to use this as an opportunity to kind of get things out on the table and clear the air as well, if you wanted to keep certain relationships in your life. If you're not wanting to, especially if ex people appear, don't entertain it. So most planets could be in retrograde. The only thing that's not in, I haven't seen in retrograde, is the sun and the moon. But as far as in that, Mercury, Venus, Jupiter, all of that can be in retrograde. Now, the next planet I want to get into that can be retrograde as well, and I'm not going to go through all the planets. I kind of just want to give like an example of how you should handle particular retrogrades when they show up, or if you have these particular retrogrades, these particular planets in retrograde in your chart. So the next planet I want to hop into is Jupiter, which is the ruler of Sagittarius. With Jupiter retrograde, these can manifest itself as in, wanting to, or rather needing to go within or go within hermit mode to achieve the spiritual or philosophical growth that you're needing to reach. So if you have a Jupiter retrograde in your birth chart, use this time to go within and get to know yourself on a spiritual level. Educate yourself on the, say, high knowledges and sciences that you've always maybe had an interest in, but you never really had the time, or felt like you, for whatever reason, you didn't want to entertain this interest that you had. During this time, you want to use this time to reconnect, accept your inner truth and your soul purpose, and make those needed corrections. So when you have Jupiter and Sagittarius, this is more of let me go within what's true and what's true and what sets my soul on fire. What are some of the philosophical interests that I have in life? So use this as an opportunity to connect with yourself on a deeper level and push the envelope and expand your mind, especially when you have this planet in retrograde. With Jupiter here, I would definitely, in retrograde, I would use that time, especially if Jupiter is in retrograde within the sky. I would definitely use this time to sit down and just meditate, educate myself on different spiritual sciences and things like that. This is not the time to start any new educational ventures that may come your way, or travel unexpectedly. These are just things that you probably wouldn't want to do during a retrograde, because it may not, come out in a way that you would like them to come out. So this is the time to kind of just go within and basically spend time with your soul and your inner psyche. So the next planet I want to jump into for a retrograde is Pluto retrograde. Now, like I mentioned before, a lot of these planets could be in retrograde. The planets that don't go in retrograde is the Sun and Moon. Now, Pluto retrograde here, this is our planet of transformation, rebirth, destruction. If you do have this planet in retrograde, especially pay attention to the house that it's in, because this is where you're going to experience the most, like, transformation and rebirth. This retrograde can manifest itself as unwanted and necessary changes that you're going to have to make. Examples, this can manifest as in toxic behaviors that you're having, that you may not be aware of, your blind spots, your thought patterns, belief patterns, relationships, or situations that just no longer resonate with you on a soul level. This is what this retrograde is shining a light on and bringing attention to. And this retrograde, depending on what else is aspected in the sky, it will remove these things out of your life, even if you don't want them to. So the best thing to do when you have a Pluto retrograde in your chart is to be willing to release and purge anything that's not of your higher good. So family, that was my retrograde video. I did just want to do a short video on retrogrades and some of the planets. If you do have these particular planets in retrograde, and even if you don't, how you can work with certain planets when they are in retrograde in the sky, so you won't be a victim. So that was it, family. I will see you in the next upload.